Fight fans, welcome to the PBC podcast, brought to you by Premier Boxing Champions with your host, Kenneth Buhari and Michael Rosenthal.
Welcome to the PBC podcast. I'm Kenneth Buhari.
I'm Michael Rosenthal, editor of USA Today's Boxing Junkie.
Thanks as always for joining us for another week of boxing banter. It's a stacked show for a big fight week. We've got former champion Omar Figueroa Jr. And on today's toe-to-toe section, we're going to share our personal top 10 heavyweight list for fighters today. And speaking of heavyweights, let's jump right into the PBC Fight of the Week. This Saturday, May 1st, former unified world heavyweight champion Andy Ruiz Jr. takes on longtime contender Chris Arreola in a 12-round heavyweight bout. The action is going to take place at Dignity Sports Park in Carson, California, with fans and live on Fox Sports pay-per-view beginning at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Mike, let's kick things off with the essentials.
Okay, here we go. Once again, Ruiz 33-2 with 22 knockouts. Arreola 38-6-1, 33. Ruiz is 4-1 in his last 5 fights with 3 knockouts. The loss was in the rematch with Anthony Joshua. Arreola 2-1 with 2 knockouts in his last 5. That doesn't count a no contest. As I mentioned, the last fight for Ruiz was the rematch with Anthony Joshua, which he lost by unanimous decision, cost him his titles. Arreola last fought Adam Kovnatsky, August 2019. That crazy fight where both guys threw over 1,000 punches. Ruiz has a 63% knockout percentage. Arreola 70. A lot of rounds here. Ruiz 163. Arreola 222. Ruiz is 31, Arreola 40. Ruiz turned pro in 2009, Arreola 2003. Both fight from an orthodox stance. Ruiz is 6'2", Arreola 6'3", 74-inch reach for Ruiz, 76 for Arreola. Both from Southern California. Ruiz is from Imperial, California. Arreola is from the LA area. I think he lives in Escondido, which is in San Diego County.
Oh, Mike, It's been nearly 17 months since we last saw Andy Ruiz Jr. in the ring. That was, as you mentioned, when he lost his belts to Anthony Joshua in the rematch. It was also a pretty long time ago. Is it long enough for Ruiz to be concerned about ring rust?
I don't think so. I don't think we've seen a lot of that during the pandemic. That's the obvious question anytime these guys come back from long hiatuses. Although obviously it's sort of difficult to determine because we couldn't know what they would be like had they not had the layoff. But I just haven't seen a lot of that. In Ruiz's case, he seems to have been immersed in Eddie Reynoso's training regimen for a long time now. And I'm sure he's had good sparring over the past few months. I expect Ruiz to look really sharp in this fight.
Now, what about Arreola? We saw the results of his new partnership with trainer Joe Goosen in his last fight against Adam Kovnatsky, which you mentioned. Has he been rejuvenated since joining forces with Goosen?
Well, Chris told me that the process actually started before he started working with Joe. Go back and see how he looked against Jean-Pierre Augustin in March 2019. He had already made up his mind by that point that he was going to get the most out of whatever time he has left in his career. And then after hooking up with Joe, things just went off the charts in terms of his fitness and his preparation. He threw that record 1,125 punches against Kovnatsky, which is just insane. Never seemed to get tired. So yes, he's really plateauing, I think, in Joe's gym.
We discussed Joe Goosen. We brought up Eddie Reynoso. How important are these two trainers heading into this fight?
Well, I think the trainers in this fight, I was just thinking for a second, does it apply to both guys? And yes, it does. I think in this fight, they're unusually important is what I'm trying to say. I think that largely ends, once the opening bell rings, though. These are two veteran guys who know what they're doing. Reynoso and Goosen did a great job of preparing both of these guys. It just seems so obvious to me. I guess we'll see in the ring, but it seems obvious to me. And now it's up to the fighters. But to answer your question, the trainers are very important. If nothing else, just to light fires under these guys, and they're both just on fire right now. So they did a great job.
Yeah, it seems like they definitely lit a fire under both of them, which can only mean good things for the fight fans. Who do you like in this fight?
I think Arreola has a better chance of winning this than most people think. He's going to be fit, which is just a crazy thing for me to say based on his history way back when. He's just changed. He's a solid boxer. He's got experience. He's got that power. Everybody seems to be sleeping on that power. That said, I think it's Ruiz's time. He's 9 years younger than Arreola. He has those really unusually quick hands for a guy his size. He's a good boxer. He also has power. And again, we know Reynoso has lit a fire under him. He expects to come in around 30 pounds lighter than he did in the Joshua rematch. So I'm guessing he's going to be as nimble as he's ever been. I think Ruiz is going to gradually break down Arreola and maybe stop him late in what's definitely going to be an entertaining fight. It's going to be fun, however long it lasts.
Yeah, after reading your article on the PBC website, your article on Arreola, I thought, man, this guy's coming in as prepared as he's ever been.
Yeah.
Now, look, that said, I'm going to go ahead and say it up front. I like Ruiz by 10th round TKO, but I expect this to be a slugfest. I expect it to be highly competitive, but and for Ruiz to have to show all of his skills, and I believe he will. All the things that he had to do in order to beat Anthony Joshua, I believe he's going to show that again and show that he can be champion once more. Now, speaking of slugfest, the co-feature I think is almost guaranteed to be one. A welterweight match between former lightweight champion Omar Figueroa Jr., 147-pound contender Abel Ramos. We'll hear what Figueroa has to say about his 22-month layoff in a bit, but Mike, how might that affect him against a hard-hitting fighter like Ramos?
Well, I also interviewed Figueroa for a story on Boxing Junkie, and by the sound of things, I think this is an unusual case. I think the layoff actually is exactly what he needed. It gave him time to just sort some things out emotionally, physically, and he just seems like locked in right now. Like he's really focused and really determined, like maybe more than he's been in years. So I think in his case, it was a good thing. Again, we'll see. He could fall flat in the fight, but he's talking a good game, and I'm sort of convinced.
Both these guys are coming off losses. Is this a crossroads bout for them?
Well, for Figueroa, for sure. I mean, his last fight, he lost to Yordenis Ugas, and it was pretty bad loss. It seems to have served him, but it was bad. He can't afford another setback if he hopes to return, to being an elite fighter. Ramos, I guess he's in a similar position. He also lost to Ugas in his last fight, although it was closer than the Figueroa fight. Bottom line, both these guys need to win this fight, which is always a good thing for the fans because they're both going to come in really hungry.
Yeah, especially given their styles. I think this is guaranteed to be an all-out war for as long as it lasts. And how long will it last and who wins, Mike?
Well, I'm buying into Figueroa. It seems that he's worked some things out. Like I said, he's locked in, or it seems that way to me. We know the talent's there and he has experience. Now he seems to be in a good place. I have a feeling he's going to look a lot like the old Omar Figueroa and score a late knockout in another fight that's going to be fun to watch. It's just like, as you said, the styles.
Well, we're going to have to update our prediction league standings because I'm going with Abel Ramos in this one. I like Ramos by close decision. I think it'll be lots of ebbs and flows, but ultimately I believe he's going to land the harder shots, and that's going to sway the judges in his favor. Now, let's see if we can keep going with this with us disagreeing. I doubt it, though.
Yeah,
now, the third bout on the card also has the potential to be an all-out war. It's a classic matchup between the rising star and the battle-tested veteran, unbeaten Sebastian Fundora against the rugged Jorge Cota in a 154-pound tussle. Mike, Fundora is one of the most fun young fighters in the game, but there are some folks who are asking, will the real Sebastian Fundora please stand up? I mean, is he the guy who drew in a lackluster performance against Jamonte Clark, or the one who just bulldozed Nathaniel Gallimore?
I guess the nature of developing as a fighter is you're going to have some ups and downs, at least in a relative sense. So that's sort of a general way to look at it. Also, I think Clark's style confounded Fundora a little bit. whereas Gallimore sort of comes, more at you. Tell me if I'm wrong, but that's my perception. That coming right at Fundora is exactly what he wants. And I think Cota is going to be that guy. Fundora is generally going to dominate aggressive opponents, and I think he's going to get better and better at dealing with slick boxers like Clark. The more he fights.
Now he's come forward, throws a lot of punches behind that 6'6" praying mantis sort of frame. Cota's a heavy hitter. Does Fundora's aggressive style play into Cota's hands?
Sure, it works. It works both ways. I just think that Fundora is good at beating his opponents to the punch, and he throws a lot of punches, which sort of overwhelms the guys he fights. If Cota is going to fight him toe to toe, he better throw a lot of punches and be able to take shots, because they're going to come his way.
Oh yeah, for sure. So who do you like?
As I said, I think Cota has a good style for Fundora. Fundora is going to take some shots in this fight. He's going to take some hard shots, and we're going to see about his chin, I think, in this fight. He better be able to take them. I think he's going to land many more than he takes, though. Those whipping shots that he gets such good leverage on. I imagine Cota, I just had this image in my head of Cota with his back against the ropes getting pounded, and the ref jumps in to save him. Eighth, ninth round, something like that.
I like Fundora, but by fourth round TKO is what I'm going with. I think he's going to make a statement here. I think he takes the initiative from the opening bell and just pounds Cota into submission. I think it's going to be surprisingly one-sided. Hey, I've been wrong before. Not afraid to be wrong again, but that's my prediction there. Now, the televised opener is another great matchup between a young up-and-comer and a proven veteran. Unbeaten 20-year-old Jesus Ramos versus Javier Molina in a 10-round welterweight scrap. Mike, Javier Molina is a big step up from the opponents Jesus Ramos has fought thus far in his career. Is it too big a step up?
Well, we're going to find out, aren't we? But I don't think so. I think this is just the right test for Ramos, who seems to have everything except experience. Molina really looked vulnerable in his one-sided loss to Jose Pedraza in September, but he's a good, experienced boxer. He has that amateur pedigree. He's been there a lot of times, and he's going to be hungry after that disaster against Pedraza. So this is a test. My gut says it's not too big of a test.
Yeah, I'm concerned for the young fighters. We've seen a lot of upsets recently with young fighters. And look, even if there isn't an upset here, perhaps Ramos doesn't look that great. Who knows? What are you hoping to see from the 20-year-old?
Well, the first thing that came to mind was poise. He'll probably have to contend with things he hasn't encountered before. Molina has a lot of tools in his toolbox. The young man's going to have to deal with whatever Molina throws at him, make adjustments, and can continue to do his thing. I see no reason to think he's not going to do that, but this is what tests are for. We're going to learn a little bit more about him in this fight.
And who are you picking?
Well, this fight's going to be a challenge for Ramos, but I believe this is his time. I'm going to use that expression again. There's a decent chance he will lose this fight. Molina's that good. I just don't think it's going to happen. Ramos has that poise he needs, poise beyond his years, I think. And he has both ability and he has punching power. Look at his knockout percentage. I think he's going to be able to cope. He'll break down Molina, and I think he's going to stop him late.
Yeah, I like Ramos late too. I like Ramos by 10th round TKO. I think he's going to have to attack the body, be smart, and be patient, and he'll be able to pull that off. And those are the things, incidentally, I'm hoping to see from him. Something came to mind as we were going through these fights. In your opinion, which fight is going to be the most exciting?
Well, they're all going to be fun to watch, I think, just because of the styles of these guys. But I think when you add the heavyweight factor to the main event, and the volume of punches that Arreola throws, it's got to be. I mean, all the intrigue swirling around Ruiz, it's got to be that one. I mean, but who knows? I mean, if Figueroa and Ramos stand toe to toe for however long it lasts, I mean, that could be crazy fun. And the same thing with Fundora and Cota. We could just go down. All these fights are really good matchups, good matchups in terms of style. But I'm going to say the main event. Man, I'm really looking forward to the main event.
Yeah, I think so too. As much as I love Ramos, Figueroa and Ramos, I just think the main event is. I mean, both of these guys aren't going to want to give up in this one, and I think it's going to be really crowd pleasing. But we're just a few days away. We're going to find out on Saturday night.
Saturday, May 1st. Don't former heavyweight champion Andy Ruiz as he takes on rugged veteran Arreola.
You have got to be kidding me!
Plus a stacked card of Mexican firepower. Featuring Omar Figueroa versus Abel Ramos.
Oh my goodness!
Sebastian Fedora versus Jorge Cota.
What a fight!
And Jesus Ramos versus Javier Molina.
And it's over!
Buy now on foxsports.com/PPV and watch it on any screen you want.
He is one of the most exciting fighters in the sport, representing the fighting spirit of the Fighting Figueroa family, a former world champion who returns to the ring this Saturday against Abel Ramos on Fox Sports PPV. It's about many expect to be a Fight of the Year candidate, Omar Figueroa Jr. Omar, first things first, how has camp been for this fight?
Honestly, this didn't even feel like camp. It was so smooth. It was so peaceful, so calm. I finally got my shit together, and I made life so much easier for everyone involved.
That's good. How long was the camp? Was it a regular 6-week camp or?
No, I like doing 8-week camps. I try to get 8 weeks if possible.
Wow. Now, what can you tell us about your opponent, Abel Ramos, on Saturday night?
I don't know much about Abel.
Wow.
I mean, so I don't know why I would want to tell you anything about him anyway. I'd rather talk to you about myself.
Okay. A lot of people are expecting an all-out war between you two. Is that your expectation based on what you do know about him?
I just want to win. And if possible, I want to win in the first round. So other than that, I don't really have any expectations. I'm prepared for anything that could come my way. Other than that, like I said, I'm in the best shape of my life, I feel. I don't think I've ever been better. And we're ready for whatever Abel might bring.
Now, it's been, nearly 2 years since you last fought. Are you worried at all about ring rust, or do you feel that the time off has sort of refreshed you?
Hell no. I've been doing this for almost 30 years, man. There's no ring rust here. I'm ready. I'm just rested. That's all it is.
That's great. That's great to hear. Now, what has the past 2 years been like? Did you reflect on your place in the sport and you renew your hunger during this period?
Boxing isn't that important to me. I have kids. I have life. I have a mom. I have brothers. I have relatives. I have myself to worry about. Boxing is just my job. I lost the fight. I move on. That's it. I get better. I want to win. I'm a competitor. I don't like losing. I lost for whatever reason it was. I wasn't in my best moment. And that's why I got back to the drawing board. I fixed whatever I had to fix, got my ass in line. I'm doing shit right now, and there's absolutely no way I'm going to lose on May 1st. Basically, that's what it boils down to.
So the last time we saw you was the Ugos fight, but it sounds like that's way into your rearview mirror.
Way back there, yes, sir. That was the closing of that chapter that I needed.
It's interesting. That it just sounds like it's giving you a completely different perspective. It sounds like, in a way, it was a good thing that it happened. In some weird perspective.
Honestly, it was freeing. It was freeing because it was such a burden on myself trying to keep that undefeated streak going, knowing that my body was falling apart. That was the worst part about it. That was what I hated about the sport. And I hated boxing for a long time because I love fighting, man. Don't get me wrong. I love fighting, getting in the ring. I don't think there's anything else in life that would fulfill me the same way. I don't think there's anything that would fill me the same way. Like nothing. Baseball, I feel like I love baseball, but baseball is more of a kind of like a petty move on my part because I kind of just, I guess, held on to baseball even more so because it was just not what my dad wanted. But I love boxing. I love fighting.
What were your injuries? You mentioned plural, more than one. Was there just a series of injuries that plagued you?
Yeah, I mean, when my dad and I started this journey many, 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 many moons ago, we did it ignorantly, not knowing anything, going based off of what we thought was best. And basically what we did the whole time was just run my body to the ground. And now I'm paying the price for it. These 2 years that I took off just really reinvigorated my body. I feel amazing. Like I said, I that's why my slogan is going to be that hashtag OPAF.
What's that?
Because it's this stupid inside joke that my brother and I use when we're at the gym and we're having a good workout, or and we just feel overpowered. It's this thing that gamers use, and
I gotta look it up.
whenever we feel strong or whatever, we say, "Oh, dude, I feel OPAF," like how kids use acronyms nowadays.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, gotcha.
So that's
gotcha.
yes, exactly. So that's been the acronym this whole camp, and that's been the energy. And honestly, it's been amazing.
That's
the slogan. We're keeping it. We love it.
That is awesome. That's awesome to hear. You mentioned training with your brother. I assume you're referring to Brandon?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. Mike, were you going to say something about Brandon, or you wanted to touch on that?
Oh, sorry. Brandon is fighting Luis Neri on May 15th. Have you been training with him, and what can you tell us about how his camp is going for him?
Honestly, I thought my brother was good before. I thought my brother was OP before, because he's just huge and he's a freak of nature, and there's no way in hell that he belongs at the 122 weight class. But somehow this guy manages to get down to 122. If you see him next to me, you would think that he's the one fighting at 147. He's huge.
Yeah.
No, maybe that's
And
one of the
honestly,
reasons. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No, yeah, there's no way. If the way that I've seen him train now, there's no way anyone, even at 135, that will touch my brother. Honestly, I'm more excited about my brother's progression than my own comeback, than anything. My brother is doing so well, so amazing. That's what I'm excited about. This guy is going to clean up every single division on his way up, all the way up to 140. I don't think there's going to be anyone that gives him trouble.
What do you think of
the 140s?
What do you think of the Neri fight? How do you see that playing out?
I think it's going to be a good fight until as long as Nettie lasts.
Gotcha. I was going to ask you if there's a. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, there's absolutely no way that Nettie's going to beat my brother. I'm sorry, but there isn't. My brother's just a freak of nature. I don't know what happened there.
I was going to ask you if there was like a sibling rivalry, but it sounds like you're just like his biggest fan in the world.
Nah, hell no. We don't. We do talk smack to each other, but hell no. My job as a big brother is to propel my brothers to go further, go beyond anything I could ever accomplish. That's how I would feel accomplished as a big brother. Not beating them at boxing or being better, no. At helping them reach their full potential. That's what I care about.
Nice. But getting back to your potential, yeah, what's your goal at welterweight? Or are you just sort of taking it one step at a time?
Yeah, I'm taking it one step at a time. We decided to make a pit stop at 147 on our way down, even though we weren't even that far from 147. But because we know that my body is fragile now, we tried to give us some breathing room and just, stop at 147 and see how I felt. But I think I might even go down to 140 because we didn't have trouble for 147 at all. So I might move back down and campaign at 140 for a bit, clean it up real quick, and then, come up to 147 where the fun's at.
Now, does that depend on how you look this fight? Let's go in. Let's say you go in there and you blow Abel Ramos right out. Maybe you get the first round, like you mentioned earlier. Would you continue to campaign at 147 then, or would you still stick to the plan of going back down to 140?
No, I think we're gonna try 140. It was just way too easy for me to make 147.
Oh.
So no, I mean literally the first day of training when I got here to California, I weighed myself. I was weighing 154.
Oh, that's impressive.
So yeah, 140 is that. Like I said, I made some changes, some lifestyle changes, and life has never been easier.
That's really good to hear. Do you feel? I know you said boxing is at the end of the day you have children, you have your family, you have things that are in the big picture far more important than just boxing. But do you feel a renewed hunger, like this is do or die for you right now, that you want to continue in the sport and you understand that this fight has huge implications for you?
Hell no, man. I love boxing because of something that burns inside me. It's not because of anything else. I love getting in there and showing the other guys that I'm the better man. That's it. That's all I care about.
Where do you think that comes from? That warrior spirit that's just, it shows in the way you fight, obviously. Well, and in the way your brother fights. So is it just a family thing? Is it just in the bloodlines?
Honestly, I think so. Because now that you mention it, it's true. Like that is kind of a peculiar trait to have, to just be so adamant about stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
to just be extra competitive. But I don't know. I mean, it does have its pitfalls, because it's like anything. You have to control it. Everything has to be in moderation. So it's just something that I've learned with time, and that loss really just took a huge weight off of my shoulders. I swear. As soon as honestly, I don't want to say it and sound ungrateful or like I don't care or anything like that, but I'm kind of glad that I lost, because I finally got that pressure off of myself, and especially because of all the injuries that I'd suffered. And honestly, I just feel great. I feel so light. I feel my mind is just so dispersed, so calm. I'm just excited.
Was it the fact that, when you say the pressure is off of you, are you referring to the fact that the pressure of maintaining an undefeated record, or was it more so that the loss allowed you to make changes? You're like, okay, now I can start making changes in my life. This is sort of giving me the push to do that.
Nah, it was more of the loss just finally happening. I guess I was just waiting for the day it was going to happen, and waiting for the opponent that was going to be good enough to finally beat me in my broken state. And that guy had a Bugas. He got lucky. If I do get to fight him again, I will knock him out.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that. Final question for you. Look, you're still only 31 years old. What more would you like to accomplish in the sport of boxing?
Honestly, I don't care about accomplishing anything in the sport of boxing, because at the end of the day, according to whom? Who are we judging what I accomplished on? Or what? The titles that I won, the money that I won, the people that I helped, or the people that I inspired, or like what are we basing my success in boxing on? That, I guess that's the more important question here.
Yeah. Now, what about you? What do you base your success on? Is it just being able to go out and put on a great show for the fans, or fighting for your family, or what is it?
Yeah, it's so that my family doesn't have to go hungry, or or go through any of the stuff that I went through growing up poor.
Yeah,
that's why. So that my kids don't have to go through any of that. So that's the main objective.
Well, I can respect that. Omar, we can't wait to see you back in the ring again. We'll see what goes down against Abel Ramos on May 1st. Thank you so much for joining myself and Mike, and we look forward to having you back on the show afterward.
Yes, sir. No problem. We'll be talking about my victory on May 2nd.
I like
Love
that.
it. Love it.
Sounds good, man.
All the best, Omar.
Take care.
Yes, sir.
Saturday, May 1st. Don't miss the return of former heavyweight champion Andy Ruiz as he takes on rugged veteran Chris Arreola.
You have got to be kidding me.
Plus a stacked card of Mexican firepower. Featuring Omar Figueroa versus Abel Ramos.
Oh, my goodness.
Sebastian Fundora versus Jorge Cota.
What a fight.
And Jesus Ramos versus Javier Molina.
And it's over.
Buy now on foxsports.com/PPV and watch it on any screen you want.
All right, it's time for Mike and I to go toe to toe. This week, we're going to unveil our top 10 heavyweights today. Going to go in ascending order as always. So, Mike, you go first.
Okay, real quick to preface this. This was harder than I thought it was going to be.
Really?
I'm not saying that there's a bunch of really great heavyweights. There aren't. There never are, except for that one era with Ali and Frazier and those guys. But there was a lot of guys worth considering. I mean, I have like 20 names of guys who like have an argument that they could be, let's say, in the top 15. So in a way, I was kind of pleasantly surprised. So anyway, let's get rolling. My number 10, Otto Wallin. I think Wallin has demonstrated enough in his loss to Fury and subsequent victories that he has as much ability as most of the top guys. He's a good, polished, poised boxer. I'm not sure he's going to beat the top guys, but he's already showed he can hang with one. I think he's a good fighter.
I like Wallin too. I'm not going to say too much with respect to that because he's on my list. My number 10 is the former undisputed cruiserweight champion, Alexander Usyk, who did a lot of great things at cruiser. Has one decent win at heavyweight, I think enough when you add in his background. Plus, he does own a win over Michael Hunter, who's turned out to be a fairly decent heavyweight, is enough for him to land at number 10 on my list.
Okay. Number 9?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Number 9 for me is Luis Ortiz.
Wow.
So Ortiz has handled everyone not named Deontay Wilder. He's 42 now. I think he still has ability. He still has that power. That doesn't go away. Maybe he has one more run at a title left in him. I don't know. I'd be surprised, I think, at this point if he were to win a title, but I think he's still a good heavyweight.
My number 9 is Joe Joyce, who is fast rising on this list as far as I'm concerned. Very impressive victory over Daniel Dubois last year. And then not to mention earlier in his career, what he did to former champion Bermane Stiverne. I can't wait to see him against Usyk if, in fact, that fight does happen, or whoever Joyce goes up against. I think he's a serious threat to become a world champion. All right, let's get to number 8.
Joyce is my number 11, by the way.
Wow.
So yeah, he was one of the guys that I agonized over because I'm impressed with what he did against Dubois too.
And Stiverne, I mean, he's got a couple wins. That was a couple years ago, but he's got a couple wins over some names.
Yeah, he's got something going. That's for sure. He's a guy to watch. Number 8 is, you mentioned him earlier, Michael Hunter. I see that he's in a lot of the heavyweight top 10s. You know, part of my research, I just sort of wanted to see who other people had in their top 10s, and he was there. So I think he deserves respect. He still has to prove to me that he's a legitimate threat to, the top heavyweight contenders, though. Obviously has some talent. He was a good cruiserweight. I think he's a good heavyweight, but we'll see what he can do.
Yeah, I like Hunter a lot, and he's my number 11. I mean, he fell just outside the list. Very, very good fighter, but like you, I'd like to see more from him. My number 8 is Otto Wallin, who we just discussed. We saw what Wallin did against Tyson Fury in a really good fight. Again, everyone likes to talk about that cut, but people forget that he rocked Fury in the 12th round and had him holding on, aside from all the good work he did early on. So very, very good, tough fight against arguably the best heavyweight in the world. And then he came back and outboxed Dominic Brazil in what was a very, very good fight. I think that was another solid performance. He's another fighter on the rise. Who you got for number 7?
Number 7, Joseph Parker. This is another one I sort of agonized over. I mean, I had him number 7. I had him number 10. I had him out of the top 10. I ended up putting him on my list because he's been there a number of times. He has some good victory. victories. He bounced back from his setbacks against Joshua and Dillian White. He's a skillful, experienced guy with some power. I think he's going to handle Derek Chisora on Saturday, so we'll see what happens in that fight. But I think Parker's still a guy that's in the mix.
Yeah, that's why he's my number 7 as well. I mean, look, I think Derek Chisora has seen way, way better days. I expect Parker to blow him out. He should blow him out. Although I feel like Parker is not the same fighter he was a couple years ago. I just haven't seen that spark. So I'm hoping he gets it back against Chisora. I hope this springboards him to bigger and better. Who's your number 6?
So Chisora leads me directly to my number 6 is Alexander Usyk. He's a small heavyweight, as we know. He isn't going to hurt anybody with his power. But I'm not sure anybody in the division is more skillful, with the possible exception of Tyson Fury. And the reason I mentioned Chisora is I think I'm in a very small minority, but I thought Chisora looked good in that fight against Usyk. I know he was in shape, and my point really is that he took that fight really seriously. He prepared as well as he possibly could have for that fight, and I think he looked pretty good in that regard. And Usyk still won the fight. He didn't look spectacular, but he still beat a bigger, solid guy who I think is a solid guy. I think it's going to be tough to beat Usyk because he's so talented, but his lack of power could come back to bite him. Yeah,
I think I wasn't very impressed with Usyk in that fight at all. Look, Chisora could train for 15 weeks. He's still pretty much a shot fighter.
Didn't look shot to me. That's my point.
Yeah, I think that says more about Usyk than it does him, because he certainly looks shot against everybody else.
Usyk's but that's my point, is that he was in shape for that fight. Listen, he's old. He's an older fighter.
But I think how do you know he wasn't in shape for all the other fights?
Because he just didn't look like it to me. It looked like he was
figure wise.
Just everything, just the things that were said and things that I saw before the fight, the way his body looked. His weight, I think, if you go back and look, he was lighter than he'd been in previous fights. At any rate, listen.
It doesn't matter if he was in shape.
Yeah, Usyk's never going to look like a world beater, I don't think. But he might be like a John Ruiz kind of guy who finds ways to win fights, and it'll never be
over some top heavyweights. Usyk doesn't have that yet.
Right? No, absolutely. Yeah, we have.
I'm shocked to see he's number 6 on your list over all those other guys, over Luis.
Just talent. It's talent.
I don't know if he's more talented than Ortiz as a heavyweight. Maybe as a cruiserweight. But anyway, I've got Ortiz number 6. And I wish that I'd pick Ortiz to beat almost every single guy below him and probably a few guys above him. I think he's proven his skill. We saw what he did in 2 fights against Deontay Wilder, but beyond that, he's got a slew of good wins over some top contenders over the years. I do think he's on the downside of his career, and ripe for the picking. I'd love to see him against an Otto Wallin. I think that would be a really, really good fight for both guys. But Ortiz is my guy at number 6. All right, who's Cinco?
Now we're getting into a different realm, I think. Number 5 for me is Andy Ruiz Jr. He's still the guy who knocked out Anthony Joshua, and now with Eddie Reynoso, he's trimmed down and more focused on boxing, perhaps more focused than he's ever been in his career. He's got all kinds of potential going forward. I'm just really, really curious to see how he looks in this fight.
Yes, so am I. I mean, there's a lot riding on Saturday night, and we'll see. We'll see if he brings it. Now, my number 5 is Dillian White, who I think over the years has proven himself to be a top 10, top 5 heavyweight, beaten several good contenders. Typically not in the greatest of fashions, but he does have those wins on his resume. But he does have some ugly losses as well. However, I think he's closing in on another world title shot, and he should get one. I think he deserves it. All right, who you got at number 4? I assume it's White.
It's White.
Yeah.
I'm not quite as high on him as some people, but he's obviously a good all-around heavyweight. He deserves credit for bouncing back from the loss to Povetkin, although Povetkin didn't look very good. Like maybe he was still suffering from the effects of COVID. I don't know. But White did bounce back and turn the tables on Povetkin, which I thought was impressive.
Yeah, for sure. Like I said, I think he deserves another world title shot. It was a setback, happens in heavyweight boxing, and it's why he's at the lower end of my top 5 is things like that. But Again, he proved himself in the rematch, and he's proved himself in other fights. My number 4 is Andy Ruiz Jr., who I thought, one, lost an extremely controversial decision to Joseph Parker in Parker's hometown, a fight that could have gone Ruiz's way. Then, of course, we saw what he did against Anthony Joshua, which was just exquisite. Obviously, the rematch knocks him down a couple demerits, but I'd like to see what Ruiz does in shape on Saturday night and where he goes from here. All right, top 3. I think we know the names. It's just a matter of the order. So who you got for number 3?
Yeah, I think we're going to have, well, maybe we won't have the same order. Number 3 is Deontay Wilder. I've said this before. I think it might have been on the last podcast. I think there's a discernible drop off from the top 2 to 3 to where Wilder is. That's just because that was a really bad loss against Fury. Got knocked out the way he got knocked out. So I need to see what he can do, on the comeback trail before I start putting him in the same class as the top 2 guys. But listen, he lost to Fury, but that doesn't erase everything he did before that. He did a lot of remarkable things before that, and he still has that power. So do not sleep on Deontay Wilder. He's not going anywhere yet.
Yeah, and I'd like to see that third fight against Fury. I mean, the first fight, I thought, having watched it several times, was a pretty close fight. And not to mention that Wilder dropped him twice. Of course, he got beat one-sided in the rematch. I don't know if that, then again, Anthony Joshua got beat pretty one-sided by a guy who's outside of the top 3. So I'd like to see Wilder in that. My number 3 is Anthony Joshua because of that wishy-washy performance. I know he had I think that his best win, other than that, to me, is the victory over Joseph Parker. Dillian White was another solid win, although White was a bit younger. So was Joshua at that time. But I think the big win that everyone talks about is the one over Vladimir Klitschko, and I'd like to point out that Klitschko hadn't fought in a couple years, was coming off the loss to Fury. Now that said, Joshua is as capable. If someone has Joshua at number 2, someone has Joshua at even number 1, I won't complain because I think that the top 3 are capable of beating each other at any point on any single night. But I haven't seen the same Anthony Joshua since that loss to Andy Ruiz. He kind of looked really tentative in the rematch against Ruiz, and he looked really tentative again against Kubrat Pulev, who, quite frankly, Joshua should have gotten out of there very early, and he almost did. But then we saw the middle rounds, and it was strange. So curious to see what he looks like the next time he steps in the ring. Hopefully it's against a top guy. I'm almost certain it'll be someone on this list. So we'll see what happens. I assume he's your number 2.
Number 2, Anthony Joshua. I still have questions about his mental toughness after the Andy Ruiz fights. That's plural, both the first one, which was actually kind of bizarre the way he behaved in the first fight, and then even in the second fight where he sort of played it as safe as he possibly could. You have to give him some credit because he outboxed him to regain the title, so he did what he did. I actually thought he didn't look great against Kubrat Pulev, but I thought he looked a lot better in that fight. Mentally, it looked like he wasn't afraid. It looks like he looked a little bit more like the old Anthony Joshua in that fight, and he got the win. He's in terms of talent, he's more or less a complete package. For him, it's just what's going on in his head, but he's a damn good heavyweight.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I agree with you regarding the Pulev fight. I just need to see it. I thought maybe there might have been some sort of breakthrough there, and maybe he got his old swagger back, but I need to see it. I need to see that one, that next fight to be fully convinced. Now, my number 2 is Deontay Wilder, who is so lost is to my number 1, albeit in one-sided fashion. Look, Wilder has the speed, the athleticism, and the power to defeat anybody on any given night. And when I say the power, I mean the power, capital T and capital P. It's insane, perhaps the most vicious shot in heavyweight history. But he'll need to put it all together again. We need to see what he's going to look like coming off that loss and where he's at mentally. And I look forward to that. And I think we both have the same guy at number 1, and deservedly so, huh?
Yeah, this is pretty easy for me. The Gypsy King is still the man to beat. The combination of size and athleticism and ability makes him a nightmare for pretty much anyone. I think he's assuming for a second that he's going to end up fighting Joshua, although I'm so tired of hearing about this back and forth garbage with them. If they're going to do it, just do it. I think he's going to beat Joshua handily if that fight happens, but They're all big, strong heavyweights who punch hard. He might not win that fight. I just think right now, as things stands, he's far and away the best heavyweight in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. I think by virtue of his last performance, and of course he also beat Vladimir Klitschko, so he ended two of the longest heavyweight reigns in recent history. Tyson Fury, without question, is number one. I don't even think there's really much of a debate. Would love to see the third fight against Wilder. Would love to see the fight against Joshua. Hopefully we see both very soon. That's going to do it for this week's show. We want to thank Omar Figueroa for joining us. Again, as a reminder, guys, this Saturday, Fox Sports pay-per-view, the return of Andy Ruiz Jr. versus Chris Arreola. But aside from the main event, a stacked pay-per-view card, all Mexican, all action. Can't wait. Hope you guys tune in for that. And of course, hope you guys join us again next week so we can talk all about it right here on the PBC podcast.